Greetings everyone, I'm Detective STARBORN, and I'm glad to see you on my YouTube channel. Please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on new and interesting videos. Thank you, and enjoy watching. On Christmas night, 1996, a murder occurred in the United States that shocked the entire world. A 6-year-old girl was found dead in the basement of her own home. Several hundred people fell under suspicion, including her parents and brother. This mystery has not been solved for a quarter of a century, although many are convinced that the girl's killer has long been known. JonBenét's Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990, into a complete and well-off family that seemed to have everything one could dream of. Her father, JonBenét Ramsey, was the president of a computer sales company. Together with his family, he moved to the town of Boulder, Colorado, where he bought a new, large house. From an early age, the girl participated in various beauty contests, winning many titles. These achievements brought her early fame and an additional source of income for her parents. On December 25, 1996, JonBenét, along with her parents, went to celebrate Christmas at a friend's house. The holiday was a great success. The children were delighted and had fun. All evening, they were entertained by Santa Claus. On the way home, the girl fell asleep in the car, and her father carried her to the bedroom. This was the last time her parents saw JonBenét alive. What happened next shocked the quiet and respectable town, making it the epicenter of one of the most mysterious murders in history. On December 26th, JonBenét's mother woke up at 5 in the morning to prepare for a family trip to Lake Michigan. Coming down the stairs, the woman saw a letter on the last step. The message said that her daughter, JonBenét, had been kidnapped, and it was necessary to pay $118,000 for her return. The amount was not chosen by chance. It was exactly the amount of the girl's father's annual bonus. Patricia ran to JonBenét's room, but she was no longer there. She woke up her husband, who decided to turn to the police, despite the kidnapper's prohibition to do so. The mother began calling friends, many of whom immediately came to support her. The message said that the parents would be contacted in the next few hours, and they, together with the police and friends, were waiting. However, no call followed. The letter, the main piece of evidence in the case, was passed from hand to hand. The police did not prevent this and did not even search the Ramsey house. They only suggested that the couple inspect the rooms themselves and check if everything was in place. Only 7 hours after the discovery of the letter, Mr. Ramsey began the inspection, went down to the basement, and found his daughter's body on the floor. 2 large hematomas were found on the girl's head, and traces of blood were found on her underwear. Her hands were tied above her head with a white cord. After the body was discovered, the kidnapping turned into a horrific murder. The police immediately faced the question of why the killer wrote a letter demanding a ransom. Moreover, it was written on sheets from Mr. Ramsey's notebook and took up 3 pages. This meant that the criminal wrote it right in the house while the family was sleeping. According to the police, he was in the house for about an hour. During all this time, no one heard anything suspicious or woke up. The question arises, how could the killer move JonBenét from the bedroom to the basement without making a sound and without leaving any traces behind him? Soon after the investigation began, the police admitted that they had made a number of grave mistakes. The house was not properly searched, and when it was finally decided to inspect it, it was started by the murdered girl's father, John, with a friend, and not by the police. As a result, some important evidence could have been lost, and the chances of solving the crime in the heat of the moment were reduced to 0. Initially, 2 versions of what happened were considered. Either an unknown perpetrator, who could be either a complete stranger or an acquaintance of the family, broke into the house, or JonBenét's parents were involved in the murder. Upon learning of the suspicions against them, the affluent couple immediately hired the best lawyers. On their advice, John and Patricia flatly refused to give written statements, from which the investigation hoped to obtain the conclusion of expert psychologists. In their arsenal, there is a technique that allows quite accurately determining what in the written statements of witnesses is a lie and what is the truth. The girl's parents' further actions also aroused suspicion. They refused interrogations and stated that in informal conversations with investigators, they had already provided all the information known to them. The deeper the detectives dug, the more suspicious the parents' testimony became. The mother told the police that before going to bed, she untied her daughter's hair and took off her dress. However, the girl was found in these very clothes, and her hair was tied in 2 pigtails. Pieces of the laurel wreath that the girls wore for the holidays were also found in them. Secondly, during the autopsy, undigested pieces of pineapple were found in the girl's stomach. This means that she ate about 4 hours before the murder. According to the parents, the last time the little girl ate was at the celebration around 8 o'clock in the evening. Where did the pineapple in the stomach come from then? The investigators also found this fruit in the family refrigerator, which caused even more distrust. Thirdly, some windows and doors in the house were not locked overnight. Why didn't the parents lock the house? Perhaps they unlocked them after the tragedy occurred to mislead the investigation. Shortly before the incident, Patricia and John also distributed keys to their home to many people, friends, relatives, servants, allegedly so that they could look after the house during the owner's future vacation. And finally, one more strange point. The girl's mother was forced to undergo a handwriting examination to compare her writing style with the ransom note. The detectives came to the conclusion that during the examination, the woman deliberately changed her handwriting. However, it later turned out that the letter was written using a typewriter. It has not been found to this day. The investigation also worked out a version according to which JonBenét was killed by her father. The man had been taking antidepressants for some time, so the police assumed that he could have hit the girl in a fit of anger. Thinking that she had died, he could have staged her murder by a stranger. Here it is worth remembering the ransom note. Perhaps the parents wanted to lead the investigation down a false trail and hoped that the police would not inspect the house. Realizing that a search was inevitable, he could have discovered his daughter's body himself. While the parents remained the main suspects, they appeared on talk shows, gave interviews, and even released a book titled The Death of Innocence, in which they allegedly told everything they knew about their daughter's murder. Investigator Steve Thomas, who worked on this case, also published a book about it. It is unknown what goals they pursued, but every year someone continued to profit from JonBenét's name. The girl's parents also sued 2 publications that in their materials accused them of murdering their daughter. They managed to win $4 million, which the public regarded as another attempt to profit from the deceased child. At the same time, the detectives worked out another version, the beauty pageants. The police assumed that due to the girl's publicity, some man could have noticed her, then found out her address and killed her. This line of investigation was much more difficult since the number of potential suspects could number in the thousands. Given this, the police made no progress in this direction. The investigation had effectively reached a dead end. The parents were actively profiting from their late daughter's name, and the hope of learning the truth was fading with each passing year. But at one point, everything changed. First, it should be said that the girl's mother died of ovarian cancer on June 24, 2006. Literally 2 months later, something unexpected happened. A man named John Mark Karr, who was completely unknown to the police, suddenly confessed to the murder of JonBenét. He stated that he saw the girl at one of the beauty pageants and fell in love with her. The man collected her photos, newspaper clippings, and also dreamed of writing a book about her murder. The police already thought that one of the most high-profile cases had finally been solved. But alas, Karr turned out to be innocent. How is this possible? To this day, no one really understands why he took the blame. Some psychologists believe that some people pathologically need constant attention. Confessing to a high-profile murder is the easiest way to get it. Others believe that Karr became so obsessed with the story of JonBenét and thoughts of her that he lost touch with reality. In his mind, fantasy and life merged into one, and he believed that he killed the girl, even if he had never met her in real life. In fact, he could not remember a single significant detail about the night of the murder. got confused in his own words, and had no idea what the girl's house looked like. But that's not the main thing. The police established that at the time of the murder, Karr was not even in the city. He himself never explained why he took the blame. In 2008, there was another development in the case. With the help of DNA analysis, it was established that the blood found on JonBenét's underwear did not belong to any of the girl's relatives. As it turned out, the blood belonged to an unknown man. Comparing his DNA with the FBI's database of genetic materials of criminals did not yield any results. After a long lull, another interesting event occurred. Burke, the victim's older brother, gave his first interview in 2016. In his opinion, JonBenét's murder is connected precisely with the beauty pageants where an unknown criminal noticed the girl. Here it is worth mentioning another version, according to which the girl was killed by her own brother. Proponents of this theory allow for two scenarios. Burke could have accidentally pushed the girl or in some other way caused her a serious head injury that led to the child's death. The theory looks very weak since there would have been absolutely no need to conceal an accident involving the parents. The second theory is much more logical. Burke could have deliberately inflicted serious injuries on his sister that led to her death. In this case, the parents' participation in concealing the crimes can be easily explained. Having lost one child, they did not want the life of the second to be completely ruined. Why would Burke kill his own sister? Supporters of this version cite jealousy as the main motive. With the appearance of JonBenét, the older brother faded into the background for the parents, and her successful career in beauty pageants only intensified the general attention to the girl. This resentment could have accumulated for years before it resulted in a fatal turn of events. This theory also raises questions. The brother was only 9 years old at the time. Could he have inflicted a fatal injury on the girl with his actions? And how could the parents forgive him after what he had done? In 2019, the case took another unforeseen turn. 54-year-old prisoner Gary Oliva, who is serving a sentence for burying materials involving children, confessed to the murder of JonBenét. Oliva was one of the main suspects from the beginning of the investigation. Then the police searched his car, finding a stun gun and poems about JonBenét. But they could not find any evidence linking him to the murder. On the night of the murder, December 26th, Oliva called his school friend Michael Vale and said, "I heard a little girl." Vale tried to get more information out of him, but he was unsuccessful. After the call, he turned to the police and passed on Oliva's words to them, but he does not know about the further actions of the police. After 2016, when Oliva was sent to prison, Vale received letters from him in which he confesses that he killed JonBenét, adding, "I pleaded guilty to the murder of JonBenét, as well as to countless attacks on children and sexual violence against them. I signed many agreements with court representatives in this regard. I am a serial killer. I have a mental disorder that I am unable to control. I told the detectives about all the murders that I could remember. And they wrote everything down, but they can't prove any of these murders." It would seem that after a few years, the killer was found. However, in this story too, not everything is so simple. Firstly, a whole year has passed since the confession, and since then this topic has hardly been raised. Charges have not been filed, although Oliva's initial confession was known literally from the night of the murder. Secondly, the criminal claims that he loved the girl and did not want to kill her. She allegedly tripped and fell, hitting her head. Here we are faced with the question of how the events of that night should have unfolded if the parents and brother did not hear the fall. If the girl fell, it can be assumed that she tried to run. Why didn't she scream or call for help? Even if she tried to run silently, which is completely uncharacteristic for a child, the sounds of footsteps, struggle, and falling should still have been heard throughout the house. But that's not all. The forensic examination showed that the head injury was most likely inflicted by a blow from a heavy object. Oliva, however, claims that the girl fell. In my opinion, the version about Oliva's involvement seems completely untenable. The major British publisher Daily Mail instantly inflated the criminal's confession, claiming that the case was solved. However, it is still open, And all these sensational statements by the newspaper look like a common attempt to hype one of the most mysterious murders. Another fact speaks against the version of Oliva's involvement. Remember the window through which the criminal could have entered the house? It was covered in cobwebs, and an adult man simply could not have crawled past it. The lawyers hired by the girl's father defended a rather strange version. In their opinion, a cobweb is a very elastic material, and it could have returned to its original form even after a person crawled through it. In addition, the detectives did not find any traces leading to the window or other potential entry points. Based on all this, we can say one thing. This crime is one of the most confusing and contradictory in history. Among the many versions, each has its flaws. But which theory seems the most probable? Having studied all the nuances of this case, for me, the most plausible version is the brothers' involvement. Many factors indicate to us that an outsider could not have entered the house without leaving traces. He could not have committed this crime absolutely silently, moved the girl to the basement, and left. Excluding an outside killer, we are left with 3 suspects. Of course, a 9-year-old boy could not have staged a kidnapping alone. If the killer was the brother, the parents' participation in concealing the crime is simply inevitable. Only one question remains. If it was the brother, did he kill her deliberately? Or did he miscalculate his strength and hit the girl on the head with something, which led to her death? In my opinion, we are talking about a tragic but accidental turn of events. Most likely, the brother did indeed experience jealousy towards his sister, and the events of that evening exhausted his patience. As for the parents' participation in staging the kidnapping and further misleading the investigation, it is worth mentioning one more point. Long before this, JonBenét's father had lost a daughter from his first marriage in a car accident. If Burke really accidentally killed his sister on December 26, 1996, the father faced an extremely difficult choice: to break the fate of his last living child or to save him at the cost of the truth. This version excludes the possibility that the girl's death was an accident, since in that case, Burke would have faced a maximum of sessions with a psychologist. If, however, he inflicted beatings on her deliberately, the American justice system could have dealt with him in a completely different way. Most likely, he would not have received an actual prison sentence, but he would have had to live the rest of his life with the stigma of a murderer. It is practically impossible to summarize this story. We can only speculate about what happened on that fateful night. The version about the brothers' involvement seems the most logical, but we cannot exclude all options with 100% certainty. And what do you think? Who killed JonBenét Ramsey? Write your theories in the comments, and don't forget to like to help promote this video. Thank you for watching this video, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I look forward to your comments on this situation. That was Detective STARBORN. See you soon.